And we're here at BioFuture 2023, and I'm here with Andy Plump. He is the president of R&D at Takeda. And Andy, great to have you with us.
Hi, Seema. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, so we've just come off of a phenomenal panel discussion, right? You and I had a fireside chat about what at least is, I would say, my favorite topic, which is cures.
Yeah.
And how do we get to cures? Where are we today? What do you think? I mean, you're a physician scientist, right? You've seen science happen. You actually take care of patients. Where do you see us going with cures?
Well, firstly, terrific fireside chat.
Yes.
So thank you very much. I had a lot of fun, and I think
we
had a good
yes,
connection.
We had a good connection. Yes.
And I love the topic,
Yes.
of course, as someone who's grown up, curious about science and who treated patients and has seen so many patients die of diseases that we should be able to treat.
Yeah.
This idea of shooting for a cure is really what we should all be aspiring to. And as we've evolved, as the science has evolved, as our understanding of human disease evolves, as our access to this diverse array of modalities has expanded, we have that, absolutely have that potential. I think the only thing that stands in our way is ourselves.
Wow, that's great. I mean, so it feels like we have the toolbox, right? What we need is the motivation. What role do you think does digital, all the new hype we're hearing about data sciences, about digital, about AI, machine learning, where does that come into play in finding cures?
Right. Well, of course, digital is and will continue to become a more and more fundamental part of everything we do. Unfortunately, we're still not going to be able to go into a computer and click a button and have a molecule delivered. That's not going to happen. Certainly not in my lifetime. But the applications of digital technology are really profound across our whole value chain, from using tools like AlphaFold, which came almost out of the blue and has revolutionized how we think about looking at structures of molecules and how our potential therapies bind molecules. It enables immensely our ability to make decisions and move fast. To the other extreme in development, where one of the biggest challenges that we face today is finding and accessing patients for our clinical trials. And so having the ability not to go to a trial site and then look for patients, but to actually go to the world and find the universe of patients and then identify trial sites that are near those patients. It really has the potential to transform development.
Isn't that a little bit of what we did during COVID? Because we kind of were chasing after the virus. Because as we were trying to enroll people into clinical trials, we wanted to find those places where actually we could find patients and we could actually do the trials and get, statistical significance, right? So it can be done.
For sure. I mean, this actually is relatively easy. Nothing that we do is easy, but and certainly there are precedents, and you highlight COVID as an example. But if you look at it just intuitively, this just makes sense. And I suspect over the next 3 to 5 years, the element of our business that will evolve and change the most will be how we approach clinical trials.
And speaking of how we approach clinical trials, diversity in clinical trials is like a big thing that we need to do because, first of all, it's the right thing to do because we want our medicines to work on the populations globally, right? Not just in specific cohorts or men or women or people of it has to work in diverse population. But on the other hand, also we've just talked about AI. So unless you feed the machines complete data and representative data, you're not going to get the representative result, right? So talk a little bit about why it's important to have diversity in clinical trials.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. And unfortunately, we didn't have a chance to take on this topic in the panel, so we can do it here. So unfortunately, we've done patients a disservice, by not recognizing exactly what you said, the need to study our medicines in diverse populations. And actually, parenthetically, we've done ourselves a disservice because there are a lot of patients in diverse, marginalized populations that could be enrolled in our trials, and so there's a win-win here. The opportunities are for us are the following. The first and foremost is to gain trust, to communicate in ways that everybody can understand, and to be able to access these patients. And we talk a lot about digital. One of the
Yeah.
great opportunities with digital is doing something that we call decentralizing our clinical trials,
Yes.
which is moving the trials away from clinical trial sites
Yeah.
that oftentimes don't have access
Yes.
to these diverse populations and
Yeah.
taking the trials to those patients' homes.
Yes. I mean, that is like the next frontier, isn't it? How close are we to doing that?
It's there.
It's there.
Yeah, I mean, the technology is there. It's
Yeah.
actually our ability to implement that technology. Change management.
Yes.
It's our willingness to step in,
Yeah.
and of course there's risks. There's
Yes.
quality risks, and there's all kinds of uncertainties, and we don't like that kind of risk. We don't mind the risk of starting a drug discovery program and having a 10% probability of success. We're okay with that
Yeah.
risk. But when it's the risk that you're in a trial and you're going to do something a little bit differently that hasn't been done before, it's quite scary for us.
But you know, at the end of the day, drug development, the process of drug development, has stayed the same for a very long time. It is a little bit of a slow process, isn't it? Is there a way to accelerate it? Are there ways that you could create, for example, digital twins, you know, where you could study some of your drugs in digital twins instead of in actual human beings?
So yes, I mean,
Yes.
so we're very old school.
Yeah.
And we're like a big barge. It's very hard to turn us.
Yes.
And there are parts of what we do that you can't accelerate. If you're
Yeah.
going to do a toxicology study in an animal model to understand the safety profile of a new molecule
Yes.
that needs to be 9 months.
Yes.
The 9 months
There's
is
no way to
it's like
shortcut.
pregnancy.
Yeah.
That you can't accelerate pregnancy. And so, but there's so much of what we do that can be accelerated. You
Yes.
mentioned the use of digital twins to gain better understandings
Yeah.
that allow us to test hypotheses in more perhaps specific populations, smaller sample sizes. There's so many opportunities for acceleration.
So let's talk a little bit about, you know, change management, you know, leadership at big organizations, but also change management across the world, right? First, leadership in big organizations. How, as a leader, do you manage the complexity and the change that it takes to transform both the culture but also the outcomes in a large organization? How do you do that?
Well, so the science is really hard.
Yeah.
Managing people and changing cultures
harder.
is even harder.
Yeah.
And I think that part of the problem that we often have as scientists is that our training is very technical.
Yes.
And we rely so often on our intellectual prowess.
Yes.
And lead with that. When in reality, as leaders, what we have to be thinking about is how we enable and elevate the people in our
Yes.
organization. And you know, there's lots of books written on this topic,
Yes.
and they make it sound quite easy.
Yes.
And it's not. And
Yeah.
it requires a lot of attention and a lot of focus. And there's one thing that I've learned is that you always have to remember that you're dealing with people.
Yes.
And you need to be fair to people. You need to respect people. You need to be inclusive and listen and bring people along. And when you have a difficult message, you need to share that with transparency, with logic, with the underlying reason, and people will be okay with hard messages if you're fair, honest, and transparent.
So looking to the future, you know, we've been talking about cures a lot this morning. So the possibility is there. How optimistic are you about the possibility? And what do you think are the things we need to solve? Because the science is there. What do you think we need to solve as a society to get us from here to cure?
So I do believe in cure. You and I share an
Yes,
optimism, which
that's
is
right.
which is why we're in this business.
Exactly.
And I certainly believe that we have that opportunity. I believe that the science is a challenge, but we can overcome that with the tools we have. We have to accelerate what we do, as we talked about earlier. We need
Yeah.
to implement new tools rapidly.
Yeah.
And we have to ensure, because a lot of what we do is regulated.
Yes.
A lot of what we do is highly politicized. Regulatory agencies that regulate what and how we work are influenced by the political dynamics of the world we live in. And actually, we influence those political dynamics through our reputation.
Yes.
So we have to uphold our regulation. We have to solve problems collectively.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about IRA
Yes.
in our meeting, and you know the intent of IRA is
good,
good.
yeah.
The countries are reeling from healthcare costs. They're just not
Who can
sustainable.
argue against affordable health care?
Absolutely.
But how you get to it?
How do you get there? And
Yeah.
unfortunately, there are provisions in IRA that will limit innovation and will
Yeah.
prevent our ability from actually going after cures. And so we have to work better together to ensure that we're working towards the same common goal, which is to treat and ultimately cure disease.
And of course, we not only want to get to cures, we want the cures to get to as many people as possible, right? Access
Access.
to people.
Access.
Access. It's
Yeah.
an important aspect
Yeah.
of curing,
Yep.
isn't it so?
It's critical. Actually, one of my colleagues is a Nigerian.
Yeah.
He's a physician scientist, and he's a very prominent role in our development organization. And his goal is to, we're now moving towards cures for sickle cell disease. Those cures shouldn't just be made available to patients with sickle cell in the United States. They should be made available to patients in the continent where it is most prevalent, which is in Africa. And that's his mission in life.
And then that gets us to value-based care, right? So at the end of the day, we have to get to a place where we can start thinking about value-based care so that, a scientist's biggest, reward is to see the breakthrough actually reach as many people as possible and cure as many people as possible,
Yeah.
right? And that requires a change in how the healthcare system is also reimbursing, breakthroughs and things like that, right? A lot to solve. What do you think?
You're going to some pretty big topics,
Yeah.
absolutely. But there's a way to do it all.
Yeah.
To make innovative medicines that will cure disease, that will be accessible to patients across the world, and that will actually drive profits, which are the incentives for then reinvesting in the next wave of innovative cures.
So everybody can be a winner.
Yeah, everybody can be a winner.
And that's what cures are all about.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you for joining us, Andy.
All right, Seema, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.